Disaster Planning and Response Art Rescue is a first responder for the world of art, providing planning, packing, evacuation, conservation, and storage for all your treasured possessions.
It's great to have you here. My name is Elizabeth Alfano, and for those of you who may have been here before or may not, you are at Fear No Art Presents The Dinner Party. So what we do here is I invite 3 Chicago or national celebs. That could be a scientist, an entrepreneur, an artist, a politician, and over food and wine and chocolate, the conversations flow. So it's a really fun, exciting event, but I think the best part is that it's interactive. So not only are we having great food tonight from Nomi chef Sean Farr, not only are we having Vosges chocolate, and not only are we already, all of us, enjoying some City Winery wine, but you guys have the same things, you're eating along with us, and you're a part of the conversation. So get out your phones, get your Twitter fingers ready, and you can tweet to, I think I have a tweet hashtag. Okay, so our hashtag is The Dinner Party, and the tweet handle is Fear No Art CHGO. So if you send me your questions and I ask them on stage, because we've got some great guests tonight, then you can win some fantastic stuff like a gift certificate for Nomi Kitchen, some XRT things that you can't get anymore on the regular market, but we've got them here on our Fear No Art Black Market. We've got tickets to Hubbard Street, lots of things to give away. A great $500 value gift certificate for all the wine you can drink and all the chocolate you can eat for a private party at Vosges. $500 value. So get out your Twitter fingers and your phones and get ready. But I want you to know that you're not alone in tweeting, because we are also streaming live on Time Out Chicago. So welcome to everybody at Time Out who's watching us tonight. I'm going to let everybody pull out their phones, get set up, because it's been a little hard tonight to get online. So while you get set up, I'm going to thank, of course, my sponsors that I love, and nothing happens without them. So thank you to Back Inc. I can't tell you, we had so many tech problems over the years, and they have gotten us up and online running every single solitary time, and they're the reason we can stream live on Time Out Chicago. So thank you to Back Inc. And also thank you to DPR Art Rescue, Disaster Planning and Response Art Rescue. They are the best in the land. I would not trust my art or furniture to anyone else. DPR is made up of Terry Dowd, best art shipper in the land, and Bernanke Conservation, he's wonderful with furniture, and Parma Conservation, and they do wonders with paintings and restoring them and bringing them to life. So I thank them for being my sponsor. I love having them. Okay, so now that I've thanked my sponsors and you guys are all up on Twitter, let me bring out our guest tonight. We have a fabulous lineup. Our first guest is often referred to as everybody's best friend. He is a beloved radio personality, and I'm thrilled to have him here. Morning DJ on WXRT, please welcome Lynn Bramer. Lynn Bramer, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. You sit right there. It's very exciting. Okay, so our next guest, I think she is the busiest person on the planet. She's everywhere, sometimes often in 2 places at once. I'm not sure how it's possible. She is the host of Watch312.com. She's the social columnist for the Chicago Tribune. And of course, she is the author of the most popular blog in Chicago and soon around the nation. She's the author of CandidCandice.com. Who doesn't love Candice Jordan? Great to have Candice. It's great to have Candice here. We're very happy to have you here. Okay, so these are 2 pretty big personalities. But my next guest does not have 1 Jeff Award. He does not have 2 Jeff Awards. He has 7 Jeff Awards. Please welcome the Associate Artistic Director of the Timeline Theater on crutches, Nick Bowling.
Crutches.
He's healed. He's left his crutches. You guys sit down. You guys have a seat. He's left his crutches in the back. Thank you, Nick, for coming. So, of course, I want to join my guests, but I would be remiss if I didn't also say slaving devilishly away in the kitchen, we have the chef de cuisine of Nomi Kitchen, Sean Farr, who's making us some wonderful things. So he's going to be out here in just a second. It's very thrilling. Sean Farr, great food is coming your way. So I brought you all together because you all actually have something in common that you might not think of as something that you have in common. And I'm dying to talk to you about it, but it's hard for me to focus on you when I know that we have food coming our way. So let's first look at a video and see what Sean is making for us in the kitchen.
Welcome to the dinner party. My name is Sean Farr. I'm the chef de cuisine here at Nomi Kitchen at Park Hyatt Chicago, located on Michigan Avenue. For your dinner party this evening, the first course we're going to start off with is a little bit of duck confit rillette, served with French prune mustard and some grilled country toast. Duck confit rillette is the confit itself re-whipped with the fat that it got slowly cooked in. Here we have some duck confit that I've already picked off the leg. For those of you that don't know, duck confit, it's duck leg and thigh that's been cured with a little bit of sugar and salt, some spices and aromatics. Let to cure for about 12 hours, and then we rinse that cure off and we slowly cook it in its own fat for about 3 to 4 hours, depending on what temperature you're rolling at, until it falls off the bone. And you can always tell because that leg bone starts to slide right up. So what we'll do is we'll pick off the pieces, mindful to keep them in larger chunks and any connective tissue removed. If we keep them in larger chunks, when we start mixing it later on, it prevents it from turning into a total mush. So then we're left with the picked meat. We're gonna add pickled shallot, parsley, some chives, a little bit of salt, pepper, and then we're gonna start to mix it. And one of the things you want to do is you don't want to beat the crap out of it right away. You want to try and keep nice big pieces. Otherwise it becomes a big mushy paste. So now for the good part. That fat we were talking about, we're going to start slowly working that back in. A little bit at a time so it stays nice and emulsified. A little bit more pepper. And one of my favorite parts, add in a little bit of PX. This is a very nice boozy raisin flavor to it. Complements well with the duck. So we're there. So at this point, you can either roll into shapes, pack it into a tureen, or in this case right now, I'm gonna pack it into a parfait jar. This all came about as a preservation method. So what they would do is they would coat in the fat, they would cover it with a little more fat, and it would last indefinitely so you wouldn't have to waste any product. Wipe that out. At this point what you do is you let it cool down, and then you drizzle a little bit more fat over the top. So there's what you're looking for in that. So let's finish up this dish. This is an olive oil ciabatta. We're going to grill it on the plancha in duck fat. So really that gets GBD, or golden brown delicious as we like to say around here. So our toast is all set to go. I'm going to take some of this French prune mustard. This is giant French prunes that I pitted and mixed with whole grain mustard and both Dijon mustard. So a good smear of that. We'll start building a salad on there. Finish this off with a little bit of work farm radish. And there you have it. Duck confit rillette with country toast, French prune mustard, and a little bit of work farm radish.
To tell us a little bit. Oh, he needs a few more minutes. Okay, he needs a few more minutes. He's running behind. And he's probably very used to this, and he can tell you this when he comes out because he just had a brand new baby girl just like 3 weeks ago. So I think his whole life now is probably running slightly behind.
That is such a coincidence because I made exactly that dish. Not exactly. I took some liberties. Very, very close.
And when did you make that exact dish?
Sunday night.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, you were just toying around at home.
You know what? I was watching something really exciting on TV. I said, just whip something up.
And you could do it?
Yeah, you got to have lots of duck fat around. That's the key.
Something tells me that you have a lot of duck fat around.
I have often had duck fat in my house.
And should I ask why?
Well, actually, I do make a duck breast a la porchetta, where you mince the garlic with fresh rosemary and tie the breast together with twine, and then you sear it on the outside and finish it in the oven for about 20 minutes, medium rare, and you can serve that with or without a sauce.
Oh, my word! Okay, so next dinner party is actually at Lynn's house. Are you inviting all of us to your house?
My wife would be thrilled. And it would not be the first time. When we first moved to Chicago, we lived very close to the Metro, and we were living in a second floor apartment, and we went to the Metro. We saw an Australian band called the Hoodoo Gurus.
Oh, I love them. I remember them.
And we invited 5 or 6 people back to our apartment for bourbon and chocolate ice cream. It's a nice combination. So it was some of the DJs, Johnny Mars, who many of you know, and Marty Leonards, and I think Wendy Rice. And we're sitting around and we're waiting for Johnny Mars, who was running a little behind schedule. And all of a sudden we hear coming up the stairs this like thunderous, all these steps. Well, Johnny had gone backstage and invited the band. Invited the band's friends, invited the band's groupies, invited whoever was hanging around Metro. And pretty soon there are 40 people in the apartment. My wife is looking at me like, what's going on? I said, don't worry, I have plenty of beer. And for about 2 hours of people dancing and playing my records and stuff like that. And just like that, they were on to the next party, they vanished. And my wife turned to me and said, every night's not going to be like this.
And it has been.
And it has been.
Ever since. Okay, wait, so I think we do have Chef Bar. I think he is actually behind there, sneaking behind. Yes, here we go! Yay! Okay, so this is something that I find out a lot in Chicago. Thank you for being with us. Is that, being a chef, you're wildly creative. You started off as a musician.
That is true. I started out as a jazz percussionist, but in all reality, I just wanted to play punk rock, and
You'll fit right in.
marimba and timpani etudes kind of put the nail in that coffin. So.
And I think, so you've done lots of sort of changes throughout your career. You've always been kind of high-end, we'll say white tablecloth, but then you took a little dive, not in the negative sense, but you took a little turn.
I drink at dives.
You
maybe,
did. You drink at dives. But you went casual for a little bit. You went into a casual dining, and you said that you missed fine dining.
Yeah, that's true. Even though casual dining is kind of where I want to eat all the time when I have my days off, my wife and I go and get cheeseburgers and fish fry and pizza, and she's always like, Sean, you have to go to a new restaurant, see what's out there. I'm like, I just want cheeseburgers, man. But I miss the refinement, and I miss the attitude and the drive of the cooks. And like the cooks that I was surrounded out with when I started, they all had the same goal. It was a great energy. So I kind of missed that, and that's what kind of forced me back into that direction.
Brought you back to Nomi Kitchen. How many of you have been to Nomi Kitchen recently? Because it's completely revamped. It's really interesting what you guys have done. They've done sort of like a holistic Nomi spa, Nomi Kitchen. You've done a whole revamping there. So I hope people are tweeting in lots of questions to win the gift certificate at Nomi Kitchen, because it's really good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a little eating, but you're going to be back with us.
Absolutely.
I know you're working on our entrees, so
Yes.
we're going to have you back a little later in the
Great.
show.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, Sean.
Could you describe what this is? Oh, so wait, so he's going to give us a description again, even though we saw the video.
I couldn't
Okay.
see it.
Sorry.
No
Yeah,
problem.
yes.
So what you have here is duck confit rillette with a little bit of country toast that's been spread with a French prune mustard. On top of it, you have a salad of watercress, shaved radish, little Banyuls vinegar, and some extra virgin olive oil. So just feel free to cut into the rillette and spread it on the toast and make yourself a little sandwich.
Okay, yes,
might
go
need
to
that.
town. Thank you, Sean. And Sawyer maybe is bringing us silverware up here, so that's
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be
I'm
great.
sure he is.
In theory.
Because
But
he knows I will leave with my hand.
Go right ahead. So it's funny, I always tell people don't be bashful about eating on the show, but I don't think I have to worry here with Lynn. Hey. When in doubt, I always have our guests. Thank you. Here you go, you guys. Thank you, Nick. There you go. Okay, so I have a question for all of you. When I started out on WTTW a couple years ago, I interviewed Joan Cusack and I interviewed Joyce Piven. And I've learned so much much from the wonderful Joyce Piven. I have so many quotes from her that I love. And one of them is I asked her, you know, you've churned out so many successful people from the Piven Theater Workshop. Joan Cusack, John Cusack, Adian Quinn, Lily Taylor, of course, Jeremy Piven. And I said, why are there so many successful people coming out of Piven? And she said, it's because all of these actors were willing to be 100% of themselves. They went to LA and they didn't conform, they didn't shrink, they just continued to be 100% of themselves. And I look at the three of you and I think you're so successful at what you do. I mean, you were an artistic director, one of the founding members of the Timeline Theater, so clearly following your passion. Candace and Lynn, I mean, it's hard to tell the difference between their personal lives and their
We discovered we're both the last people to leave any party we're
It's
invited
true.
to.
Absolutely true.
You've been warned.
But it's hard to tell the difference where your life stops and your work starts, because your work really is you. And so I wondered, is that what you attribute your success to?
I had a big change in my work life 3 years ago. I spent 10 years working in the corporate world as a corporate concierge, part of a company called Corporate Concierge Services. So I was very connected to restaurants and to all of the happenings, cultural happenings in downtown Chicago, but also connected to the real estate world. And so that was it was fascinating because it meant my life was sort of split in two for those 10 years, and I had it was very challenging. It meant half my life was sort of focused on a for-profit money-making venture, and then the rest of my life was focused on theater. And 3 years ago, I got very lucky, and the company that I helped found 16 years ago was able to hire me back in, and which is great. And I was saying to one of the people backstage, our director, who also took a pay cut recently, and I said I had to take, I think, a 40% pay cut or something to take this job. But ultimately, when you talk about living your passion, I feel like people say to me, you know, what's your passion? I say it's what I do every day, and it's very exciting to live your life like that. So I know I'm very lucky.
And is that what you attribute your success to? Because I would say you were very successful.
Thank you. Thank you. You gave me more Jeff Awards than I actually have, I think. But I appreciate the extra ones.
There's only 9.
Yeah, right.
How many Jeff Awards do you have?
I have, I think, 5. That's right. So I've
That
got
is
like
so
8
embarrassing.
nominations, though, so I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
8
That's
nominations.
right.
And what about you two? What do you attribute your success to?
Well, I just think that what you said is true. I mean, if you be yourself, I mean, and if you be all you can be, and eventually, you know, you can't do anything better than yourself. I mean,
Right.
I started as a fashion director for Today's Chicago Woman magazine, which is how my blog got started. And she had started this online column, Sharon Lee, the founder of this magazine. And she says, Candace, I'd like for you to write a blog for the online column. And I had no idea what a blog was, but I said, sure, I'll write anything. You know, I'll write about what I'm doing today, or, you know, what my friends are doing. So I started writing this, and I really liked it. And I found myself walking down the street with people would stop me and say, look, I'm not wearing that nail polish you mentioned that you didn't like. And I thought, oh my goodness, people are reading what I'm writing. And it was addicting. And when I left the magazine, the one thing I missed was writing this column. And so a friend of mine said, it's easy to start a blog, you know, $50 on GoDaddy and you're set. So 5 years ago or more, I guess it's 6 now or whatever, I started writing it, and now it's gotten really popular. I have readers all over the world, and you know, and I'm still writing about the nail polish.
Oh my God, it has become so popular. But I think you bring up a good point, that feeling that there's a purpose to what you do as well. So
Yeah.
people read it and they comment and they want it and they like it, and so you feel like you're making an impact. What about you? What do you attribute your success to?
I'd like to make it sound romantic, but really dogged perseverance.
So true.
Just keeping at it from the time I first got into radio. That and the key, I've been the morning guy at XRT for 21 years now, and in radio, that's a long time.
Yes, I have to say that too. Yes.
Here's the key, and you can tell your kids this: work real cheap. While everybody else is making tons of money doing exactly what you make a lot less money, and you'll last much longer.
Well, it's funny because I think when I started out, you know, so it took me several iterations to get to where I am now. So people always say like, oh gosh, why are you doing what you're doing? Because, you know, I love it so much and it's so exciting. And I said, well, I didn't start this way, right? I had to keep looking for the right niche for me. I didn't really give up until I felt like I was really doing what I was meant to do. And so I remember early on when I just started, people would say to me, gosh, you're so energetic. It's kind of annoying. And I really had this complex. And I finally just went with it. Like, that's the gig. I've got lots of energy. There's no way I can be anything else. That's the thing. And as soon as I went with that, that's really when doors opened up for me. And so I wonder if you guys have any words of advice, because I think most people are trying to find that career where they feel that they're really doing what they're meant to do.
Well, I think it's important to start doing what you think you're meant to do. Because very often people take, I'll do this for a while.
They discuss it too much.
They go in a different direction. And when you're young, if you go in a different direction, you take a job that you're not crazy about, it gets very easy just to fall into a routine and say, I was going to be a DJ, but this gardening thing may work out. So you get your foot in the door early. I mean, for me, it was working every Thanksgiving, working every Christmas, working every Easter. Whenever somebody was sick, you're a part-timer. I'm there. I'll work for you. I'll do it.
Well, you're in the right town, because we are a working town for sure. And I think there's something to be said for that, sort of the not giving up, the being so perseverant.
Although I should point out that when you talk about hard work and Chicago and a blue-collar town, being a disc jockey, not quite the same.
No.
You really can't complain about, everybody likes to complain about their job. You like to whine about what you do for a living. You have to say, your boss is driving you crazy. So, well, what do I get to complain about? 722. I am working it this morning.
What about you guys? What words of advice would you give to somebody trying to find their right footing?
Well, I think what Lynn said is great. It's very much what Timeline was all about, which was the company that I founded and helped found with 6 friends. We started with, this is a story we've told often, but we all threw in $50 into a hat and started a theater company 17 years ago that was part of our passion and part of what we all wanted to do. What we also realized, though, early on, and this is the other half of maybe what I realized, was I went to talk to a friend about this theater company, and she said to me, "Well, why do you want to start a theater company?" And I said, "Well, because we want to do plays and we want to be on stage, and maybe I want to be famous, and and of course that's why I thought I wanted to start a theater company." She said, "Yeah, but you're not really talking about what you're going to bring and what you're going to do that's different." So what I learned back at a night at a bar on Glasgow, I think on Halsted Street, and
We all remember Glasgow.
and she said to me, she goes, "Well, what's your passion?" And I said, "Besides theater." And she said, what else besides theater? And I said, "I love antiques, and I love history, and I love things that tell you how something from the past, how it was used and how it can be used today, and how it gets changed." And she said, "That's your theater company." And I just saw this friend up at the Guthrie. She's up at the Guthrie Theater now recently, and it was a lightning moment for me. And that little conversation at Glasgow on Halsted, it shaped not only a theater company, but not only my 6 friends, but then just 17 years, a company we're now a $1.5 million a year operation from $350 an operation all those years ago. And honestly, I think that mission, which is ultimately just knowing, having something, putting your ideas together and coming up with something original and sticking with it. And that's always a tough thing, sticking with your guns and going with a mission and letting that be the thing that kind of drives you. It's exciting too. So that's
Excuse me. One of the things I was going to mention about the theater is there are so many theater companies in Chicago that have started exactly the same way.
It's true.
And it's, all these people having the same kind of vision that you did, and turning Chicago into what is really one of the preeminent theater towns in the country, if not the world.
Yeah. It's, many people say that, the interesting thing about Chicago theater in particular is that so much is born here, and so much, oftentimes a lot leaves Chicago, because a lot of New York and a lot of LA are filled with, just look at the Steppenwolf roster alone, and you see how many people have started here and left here. But there's also an amazing amount of people that stay here, and there's something very, I'm a Midwesterner myself. I'm from the Midwest, and I went to school in D.C., so I have a sense of the East Coast, and I've been to New York a lot. But something about me is so connected here into the Midwest and Chicago, and wants to keep growing what we have here in this theater community.
right.
And I agree. I really think it's the best theater town in the country.
Yes, I do too. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Candace, what would you say?
Well, I agree with both of these guys, and I would add to that because this is what's worked for me. Never say no. I literally.
It's the truth.
Well, sometimes, but you know what I'm talking about, business-wise. I mean, when every opportunity comes your way, you never know what path that's going to lead you to.
So right.
And so, like for instance, when Chicago Now, the huge blogging platform, started their platform, they had no bloggers, and I was the first one they asked. I was very honored. They'd seen my blog. And I thought about it for a millisecond, but I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do this. So I've been blogging for them for 10 years now. But like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the Tribune came to me because of my blogging on Chicago Now, because those people that knew me at Chicago Now recommended me to the Tribune for a social columnist when they were revamping the pages. And that's exactly how I got a job. I've got journalists saying, "God, Candace, how'd you get that job? Where'd you come from?" And so I was just knowing people. And so it's one door leads to another. I mean, it's just say yes and follow the path, and you're going to find something down the end of the road.
Yes, I think that's so true. Being open-minded to just whatever comes your way and going at this with perseverance. I always like to tell people, for me, I sort of call it the bingo effect. So I was really searching for when my skill set met my passion. And when that happened, I was like, zing, and I'm more than 100% of myself, because I just feel like it comes together. And then, lucky for me, and it sounds like for you guys too, sometimes after a show, somebody will say, that was so inspirational, or that really moved me, and I think like, oh my God, people even like it, like to boot.
It's
like,
Sally Field moment.
yeah, that's right. It's really, really very fun. So, okay, so let's talk about work and doing what we love. You, sir, do something called Lynn's Bin.
It started out as,
We have water, too.
I know, I got something that, when you're on mic and you have a cough waiting
It's
in
the
your
worst.
throat,
It's the worst.
it's the worst. I'm sure I'll be fine.
We can take a break, too.
No, I'm fine. Well, Lynn's Bin started out as, this is how things in radio get born. They say, hey, we need to sponsor something. And they came up with this idea, well, why don't you answer some email questions that you get? And I think they thought it would be like Craig Ferguson, who answers an email with 5 or 6 syllables and then pushes the email off his desk. For me, I always go a little overboard, and it turned into, writing a brief radio essay, which at a rock and roll station is kind of unusual.
It is.
And
Were
then-
you an English major?
Why, yes, I was.
I thought you might have been. Okay, go ahead.
And now what it is this essay that's wrapped around music and references to movies and to television. It's throw as much culture, both high and lowbrow, as I can into it. So the finished product is me researching, writing for a long time, and then handing it over to a producer, and it's a guy, all he does is Lynn's Bin.
That's all he does.
Well, he has a real job. But he used to be my full-time producer, and he moved to Columbus, Ohio. And now through the world of digital technology, I can write it, I can voice it, I can send it to him, and he can put in, 12 songs in the background with, something from Jack Nicholson and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or whatever.
So,
And
how long does it take you to pull all these elements together? Because if you've ever heard of Lynn's Bin, and I'm sure a lot of you have, it does include so many cultural references over the decades, because they're all
Well-
getting up there, so we've got decades of references.
one of the great things about social media these days is if I come across a difficult subject, I'll go on my Facebook page and say, hey, I'm writing about Little League. What are your favorite Little League movies? What are your favorite lines from Little League
That's
movies?
fun.
So, a lot of times it's stuff I already know about. Sometimes it gives me an idea. So I get it from everywhere. The problem is very often I answer questions that I know nothing about. Like somebody said, explain string theory. And this may surprise you, but
Through rock and roll.
I did very little in the way of physics through high school and college. So what I had to do is read enough about string theory so that I could then make fun of it for 3 minutes.
Okay. But that takes some
And
doing.
it worked out great. Nobody would ever know that I was completely ignorant about the subject of which I'm
About to
making a
speak,
dissertation.
that you drank your way through college and really didn't pay attention? Okay, so maybe.
You know what, if you already have the videos, we can skip to the next subject.
Well, okay, a tiny little thing before I ask Lynn to sort of work his magic. You've all kind of hit on another point, and that I think is the reason that they're so successful. You know, we've got all this technology, and we're running around like crazy, and we all say we want to be connected, but in an odd way we are, and in an odd way we really aren't anymore, because we have these stinted conversations. You're all working on building community. So you build your community, and you bring history through to the present, and you, I mean, how many people fit in your stage, your theater?
A 99-seat theater. It's a tiny
99.
theater.
How
Right.
sweet is it? We've all been
Precious.
to the Timeline Theater, have we? Yeah. Everybody get to the Timeline Theater. Everybody get to the Timeline Theater. So you're working on bringing community. Candace, that's all you do is bring people together. Candace, she does. She's, as you know, a naturally warm person who bridges gaps and brings people together. And this is what you do. Is you
I just
create
tear
community.
people apart. Cubs, Sox fans, Coldplay fans, Ramones fans, just tear them apart.
Deep dish thin.
Yeah, that's right. I'm so glad I have this on tape. Okay, well, with that in mind, Lynn, how would you like to do a Lynn spin?
I had no idea you wanted to. Well, I guess I could try.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now, I was talking about the things I write about. And if I'm writing about string theory, it's really hard. If I'm writing about Little League, because I was a Little League coach, it's pretty easy. So you have memoirs, you have things that are silly, things that are funny. Sometimes people ask me, you know, what is death? People ask me, is it still great to be alive? And those tend to be a little dour and serious, but I hope entertaining nonetheless. But at the same time, if somebody asks me a question about personal experience, they always say, write what you know. So when it's something that takes me back to growing up with three brothers in New York City, it becomes very easy to write because it kind of spills out of you if you give it a chance. And somebody asked me, I'm sure many of you have gone through this. It's easier now because you have, you know, super vans or SUVs with all kinds of entertainment. When I was growing up, you didn't have seat belts. You had station wagons. Didn't matter how many kids were in your family. You just stuffed them all in the back and hoped for the best. So when somebody said, do you have any tips? Do you have any tips for surviving the Florida vacation? I said, oh my God. My family used to get in a station wagon and drive to Florida. It took 3 days. It was brutal. So Ken Bergbauer of Bartlett, Illinois said, any tips for surviving a family vacation down to Florida this summer? We always used to go spring break, Easter time. The Florida family vacation. Half the fun is forgetting how you got there. But I can't forget. Neither can my brothers. Because there was no minivan with car seat and snug shoulder harnesses and built-in DVD players lulling the children into a drooling daze as effectively as a Librium drip. No iPod. There was Frank Bramer at dawn. Lean, taut, with a crew cut so level you could have landed fighter planes on it. Short-sleeved collared shirt revealing the U.S. Navy anchor ink he will always regret. Frank Bramer at dawn, surveying the 1968 Ford LTD Country Squire station wagon with the look of real wood. He squinted through the rear window. The back seat was folded down. Blankets and pillows were sandbagged against the luggage. 12 square feet of travel playground wrestling mat bunk. A cage to contain 3 boys, so practiced in the art of psychological torture that one of them would grow up to be a disc jockey. Transporting 3 boys in the back of a station wagon over strange southern roads was like a stagecoach picking its way through a mountain pass with a case of nitroglycerin. One jolt and the whole vacation disappears in a puff of smoke. David and John were inside the car, and quiet, like cougars before a meal. I leaned on the back of the 1968 Ford LTD Country Squire wagon, and my dad said, "Is that it? Is everybody ready?" With tidy finality, he flipped up the back door of the wagon, and I felt a sharp stinging sensation. The feeling you get when an old metal car door cuts the tip of your finger off. Only I couldn't tell if the finger was gone because at that moment it was only stuck in the closed back of the door of the 1968 Ford LTD Country Squire with the look of real wood. My father focused almost immediately on finding the keys that would unlock the rear of the station wagon and my finger. A friend of my family, familiar with, shall we say, the dynamic, once asked me if raising my brothers had left my mother permanently bewildered. My mother is one of the smartest people I will ever meet. Like many future homemakers of the 1950s, she wrote her senior thesis at Mount Holyoke on the existential undercurrents in the novels of Albert Camus. Cinci? She wrote it in French. So she was never so much bewildered as she was able to apprehend the totality of human boyhood possibility. Broken bones, head concussions, electric guitars. She keenly knew how quickly fortunes changed. It's only funny until somebody loses a finger. It was my mother who calmly whisked me back into the house with the tip of my finger drooping at the joint to which it had once been so attached. With one hand, she held my bleeding finger under the faucet. With the other, she phoned the doctor at a time when you could call a doctor on a Saturday morning and say, "My son got his finger stuck in the car door," and the doctor would, "Are you sitting down? Do something about it." So our first detour was to the family doctor, who simply jammed my finger pieces together, wrapped it in gauze, and bandaged it. My career as a guitarist now over, I climbed in the back of the station wagon with my brothers. Were they sympathetic? Up to a point. Some years earlier, my brother David had already established his sensitive side by charging neighborhood kids a nickel each to see the blood on the sidewalk after I fell out of a tree. He now works very successfully in the financial world. 2 hours into our Florida vacation, and we hadn't left the neighborhood. Surviving the family vacation to Florida, make sure the time of departure is flexible, and watch the fingers.
Wonderful. Okay, so I of course have a tweet for Senior Lynn, and
Yeah.
that is this coming from James Finn Garner. Very lucky for you.
Very fine writer.
A very fine writer, by the way, in his own right, absolutely. Sorry, and I want to say that you are winning these. Tell me about these XRT live from the
I'm
archives.
just the person to ask about these.
Volume 14.
Over the years at XRT, we've had Lou Reed in the studio, we've had John Lee Hooker in a bar, we've recorded live concerts, we've recorded people in the studio, and every year, at least the last 14 years or so, we put out a charity disc. And every year it helps out a different charity. Sometimes it's Inspiration Cafe, sometimes it's Rock for Kids. It rotates. And what these are exclusive XRT live recordings that you can't buy anywhere at any price. Now I sound like a K-Tel guy. You can't get it any price. And they're all recorded XRT shows, or actually recorded in the studio. You know, when you're sitting there with Steve Earle or whoever is in the studio with you. And the way we get around the piles of lawyers
Yes.
is we say, listen, we're only going to print 15,000 of them. So it's not going to cut into your artist's catalog. And it's for charity. So we do the song and dance. But one of the problems with this is it's limited edition. And in 3 weeks it sells out.
Yes.
And then people go, "Hey, Lynn, I really want one of those on XRT." Well, didn't you hear me saying every 30 minutes for the last 3 weeks that you should get them because they'll sell out? Yeah. So you have any? No, they're gone. Now we save a few of them for special events like this. So these are out of print.
Wow.
And I have a few to give away today.
Wow.
Maybe James already has one. He doesn't want it.
Oh, James, you're in the audience. I'm guessing. Do you want it? Nice. Okay, so you are getting this live from the archives, volume 14, in addition to a coffee mug and a T-shirt.
Wow.
So I know
And
you
this
get it
has
all.
exclusive live performances from Arcade Fire, The Shins, The Civil Wars, The Wallflowers, Delta Ray, Heartless Bastards, can I say that?
You
Two Door
can.
Cinema Club, J.D. McPherson. It's a great collection.
Lucky you, and his tweet for you is, which rock star had the worst body odor? It was one of the Stones, right?
Well, it's a funny thing. I've gotten to go backstage twice to hang out with the Stones, and this is what they do. It's a small group of 4 or 5 people in the music business, and they say, okay, you cannot talk to them, you cannot ask them any questions, you cannot touch them, tap them on the shoulder. They will come in, they will pose for a picture with you, and then they will leave.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to get a whiff of Keith Richards.
Oh, too bad.
Although I was trying, I'm leaning on it. You know what? Backstage smells so bad. It's hard to pick out the odor of the rock stars. So while I have lots of hissy fit stories about rock stars acting badly, smelling badly, I don't think they have anything on me.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's a draw then.
It's a draw.
We're going to say that it's a draw. Okay, well, I'm going to get to that question because
Wait a minute, I want to hear about the hissy
Yes, I
fit.
want-
Right.
and I-
You don't
yes,
want to
yes,
hear
I
about
do.
Nora Jones going insane.
We do, don't we? We sure do. We do.
You don't want to. Are you allowed to use the F word on this?
Go.
You don't want to hear about Elvis Costello cursing at me on stage at the Chicago Theater.
I kind of do, though.
Well, what do you want to hear? The Nora Jones or the?
I want to hear both of them.
Yeah, right.
Give us both, like, in short.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Yes.
Here's the Nora Jones story.
Okay.
Ravinia, she's a big star. First album just came out. Ravinia is, if you've ever been there, it's packed beyond the gills. It's just jam-packed. So what you do when you make stage announcements, Ravinia, you come out and you mention a couple of upcoming XRT shows. There's some coming up. But you're also very NPR. You know, it's different. If you're at Buddy Guy's Legends, you're like, 9-time Grammy Award winner, are you ready? You know, it's that kind of thing. At Ravinia, it's more like, welcome to Ravinia. I'm sorry, did I scare you? So it's very low key. And I thought I did what was a very nice, soft-spoken introduction where I said, you know, it's very crowded here, make friends with your neighbors, you know, try to squinch in so people are not sitting on the walkway. And you know what, Ravinia, people like to talk when somebody's playing, even if it's somebody quiet like Nora Jones, and it drives you crazy. So I said, remember, we're all here to hear just one voice, and that's the voice of Nora Jones. She'll be out in 5 minutes. Okay. Walking off stage, I see her on the side of the stage, and I kind of catch my breath because she's arresting in her beauty. She is a beautiful woman. I'm going, wow, she looks great. As I get closer, she's going, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? You're getting them too excited. You're ruining the whole thing. And I can't even form words.
Because she's so pretty.
No, because I don't know what the hell she's talking about. I'm getting them too excited? I don't think so. I think you'd have to give them hypodermic needles to get them too excited. So at that moment, her manager turns to security at Ravinia, and these are people I've worked with for 18 years, on stage, off stage, and they say, I want him ejected right now.
No! Wait a minute. Lynn Bramer got ejected from Ravinia?
Yeah. Let's go.
Gone. And after there, the security people going, Lynn, we're sorry. I said, I don't know what happened. I have, and to this day, no idea what happened.
That's so
But
bizarre.
I got them too excited going, Nora Jones will be out. I was insane on
That
stage.
is clearly insane. Over the edge. What about Elvis Costello? Because I can't imagine him
You know,
swearing.
The funny thing is, I had dinner.
Really? I can't imagine him losing his cool. I guess that's what I
he's
mean.
kind of an angry guy. In
Oh.
fact, if you want to fact check after dinner, all you have to do, it's great these days, is Google Chicago Sun-Times, Lynn Bramer, Elvis Costello. And the review comes out, and in the review, they couch it in terms of Elvis Costello, still an angry young man, because he blew up at me on stage.
On stage,
Well,
in front of an audience.
it was date night with my wife.
Oh, God.
So what happens is you go backstage and you expect to get treated like crap, because you always go backstage and the road manager goes, we don't know anything about this, we don't do MCs, you know, we've never had a stage announcement, and you will say, well, I did it last year and the year before, but other than that, maybe never. But it was all smooth running. The road manager said, oh, no problem, you know, use this, we'll give you a wireless mic, go out to the center, say what you're gonna say it'll be out in 15 minutes. Fine, go out there, welcome the crowd, say Elvis is going to be out, say some nice things about him, walk up the stage, go sit down at the Chicago Theater, a great night, I love Elvis Costello.
Complicated, small, yeah.
He comes out, he plays one song, and then he turns to the audience, he says, I'd like to dedicate this song to the XRT DJ who lied to get on stage tonight.
Oh, what do you mean?
That's kind of a buzzkill.
Who was he talking about?
Honey, I'm sure he's not talking about me. There must have been another XRT DJ who lied to get on stage. And he follows that by saying, I'm dedicating this next song to him. It's called You Little Fool. It's all in the article. So he does the show. He goes off stage. He comes back for an encore. And he says, you know, before the show, a close friend of mine, I was playing some music from Patrick Bell of the Chieftains, who passed away a couple weeks ago. So I was playing some of his music. But that fucker from XRT came out and ruined the whole fucking thing.
I can't believe it.
To this day, I play Elvis Costello on the radio all the time. And I'll tell you why. As you well know, you need to separate the artist from the artist.
Yes, right,
You
yes.
don't want, that's why I did a whole Lynn's bit on never go backstage, never meet these people.
Yeah, I've heard
You
this
listen
before.
to their music, enjoy the music.
Yes, and
They don't want to meet DJs
right.
unless you're 19 and of a certain demographic. They don't want to meet you,
Yes, yes.
so enjoy the music.
Yes, I've heard this before. When I had an art gallery, which was my first business, the really serious collectors would always say that they didn't want to meet the artist because they didn't want their emotions to be influenced and they didn't want to be swayed by that. So they wanted to just judge the work on the work and have that in their house.
By the way, these two stories are just between you and me.
Yes.
Well, I have a CeeLo Green story.
Oh, yes, okay, so I want to hear your...
Okay, so does everybody know CeeLo Green? Do you like his music?
Yes,
I do. I love his music. I think it's very hot and, you know, great dance music. Okay, so he was in town for the Macy's Glamorama,
Yes.
which benefited the Ronald McDonald House charities, and it was a huge deal. I mean, he
I
drew a
remember.
crowd like crazy. The tickets sold out in a heartbeat. And so I was the chair for the event, and I was in charge of the little brand ambassador, the Ronald McDonald House brand ambassador. His name was Max Herrick, and he's now, thank goodness, he's 8 years old. He survived a heart transplant at 2. He's been in and out of surgeries for his whole life. He's been a constant at the Ronald McDonald House, sadly. But now he's cancer-free, and he's doing really, really well. But at this point in time, yeah, it's fabulous. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a documentary about him and his family that I'm going to share with all of you soon, and it's going to be fabulous. But at this time, he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he, because of all these surgeries, his immune system was compromised, and so he had to wear this little mask, you know, especially in public. And he loved to dance, and he had his little hat on sideways, and so we're all at the VIP party afterwards. And he comes up to me and he says, I would love to meet CeeLo Green. Do you think you could introduce me? And I said, well, of course I'll introduce you. And so he was behind this velvet rope at this booth with no one in the booth but him. So I took little Max by the hand and I walked back, and the security guard, you know, knew who I was, and so he opened the thing. I said, I'm sorry, would you mind just taking a picture with him? He says, no, I'm tired, I'm off duty, I don't have to take any pictures. I have never listened to his music. I have never liked this guy again. I could not believe he would do something to this little kid. First of all, the mask, obviously he's sick. I will never forget that. And don't you ever.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really surprised.
That
It's
is
really upsetting.
unbelievable.
Wow, that takes like a new low.
It was a real low.
Well, now that we've trashed on a bunch of people,
I got a lot more to talk about.
That was fun though, wasn't it?
it's funny because I was all set to ask you
my favorite by far was Al Pacino.
Oh, I can see that.
He was, you know, the International Film Festival, Nick Harkin knows, he was in charge of the red carpet. And it was probably the biggest cast of stars Chicago has ever seen. This red carpet had Al Pacino, John Bon Jovi, Christopher Walken, Alan Arkin.
Wow.
I mean, there's more, I can't think,
When
but
the
it was
movie
just
came out, I
massive.
remember.
And so I was shaking in my shoes. I thought this is going to be a horrifying experience. I mean, you know, first of all, you know, I'm not that good at this, you know, yet. I feel like I progress now, but at the time I was really nervous. And so, sure enough, you know, they came out and John Bon Jovi spoke about, you know, the music that he'd contributed to the film. It was The Good Guys, or what was the name of that film? No. Oh, well, see how important it was? I can't remember.
One of them did. One of the guys.
I was so focused on these celebrities, I didn't think of it. Yeah, stand-up guys.
Right,
Guys.
yes.
And so, and he was really nice, John Bon Jovi, darling, great teeth. I mean, he was really handsome. And so the next person I talked to was Christopher Walken. And so I just had one small question, just to say that I'd introduced him, or, you know, interviewed him. And so I said, you know, what do you think? He had just done the 7 Maniacs or something, and it was released that very day. And so I said, well, you know, your congratulations on your film 7 Maniacs. And I said, how's it doing? He says, I'm not here to talk about that. And I said, oh, okay. So I ignored that. So I asked him another question. He says, no, I don't want to talk about that either. And he walked away. It was being filmed for my internet show, watch312.com. And so I turned to the camera. I gave him this really filthy face because I was so pissed that he walked away from me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the flashbulbs start going off. I look, and there, of course, is Al Pacino, the star of all stars. And I figure he's going to be the worst of all of them because he's the biggest. He came down and he talked to me for so long on camera that his publicist, Pat Kingsley, had to tap him on the shoulder for him to move along to somebody else. He would have talked to every reporter in that line all night long. He was so warm, so down to earth, and so darling. I will never forget him. He's my favorite.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. So I've actually never, because I've interviewed quite a few people too, and I have never actually had a bad experience, but I have had some experiences that have really been stellar, and for me, it's Alexander Payne. Do you remember when you were at that as well, that red carpet as well? Alexander Payne, he was so gracious, so handsome, so warm, so smart, so enlightened. I just loved that interview, and I really think the world of him. But yeah, so that was really fun, really fun. Well, okay, so moving on just a little bit, I do have a tweet from Miss Candace. Hold on here. From Daily Dill for Candace. What lessons have you learned about building a social community? And before you answer, I will say, find me after the show, unless you are watching live on Time Out Chicago, then you'll have to email me. This is your gift certificate, $500. All the wine, all the chocolate you can muster for you and 3 friends. I'm begging you to take me at Vosges in Lincoln Park.
Oh my
so,
God.
$500. Nice job for a little tweet. I'm telling you, we give away good stuff.
Are
All
we
right.
eligible?
Only if she invites us. Daily Dill, please invite us.
Right.
So, what lessons have you learned about building a social community?
Well, what I've learned the most is probably to build a community, you need to be supportive of everybody in that community.
Yes.
And I think that one hand washes the other, and I know for a lot of charities around town, I make it a point to, you know, cover them the best way I can, and you know, on whatever format I'm working with, you know, to tweet about them, to their good works, and friends of mine, you know, champion their successes, and you know, cry with them when they're sad and laugh with them when they're happy. And I think that people relate to that kind of a one-on-one, and that's, people notice that. People notice kindness, and you know, you want to be a part of that community that's a positive things and not negative things. And so I think that's what's helped me the most.
Well, so we've had a couple trash stories here, but I will say that Candace radiates positivity. So just radiates.
Except that one seal of great
Yeah,
story.
except for that one, that bastard, but otherwise,
Bastard.
radiates positivity. And so here's a little fun thing about Candace. I interviewed Candace, so I've known Candace for a gazillion years, actually, because she's a paperweight collector, as we'll soon find out, and so I've known her for a gazillion years. But I interviewed her at her house maybe about 2 years ago. So let's take a look and go into the house of Miss Candace Jordan and see what she's got going. Candace, thank you for having me in your
Elizabeth.
home.
Thank you for being here.
This is one of the most gorgeous homes I've ever been in.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. Literally every space of what I see is filled with furniture and paintings and paperweights, and it's amazing. When did you start collecting?
Well, my husband and I have been married 21 years, and I've been collecting antiques all my life.
Really?
Oh yeah, since I was in high school.
You know, I've watched you over the years in Chicago, and you're such a mainstay in Chicago. You have your blog, candidcandace.com, and so I wouldn't naturally peg you
for an antique person.
No, a lot of people don't peg me for a traditionalist in my home. I mean, they come in, they expect a lot of modern, silver, sleek, black
Yes,
leather, and
yes.
I don't know why, but no, I'm definitely a traditionalist. I love antiques.
So Candace, I see at least 35 paperweights here, and I know they're in other parts of your home. I've seen some more. What made you start collecting paperweights?
Well, it's the rarity of the paperweights, and it's the intricacy of the glass blowing techniques, at the turn of the century. When you look at these paperweights, especially the lampwork paperweights like this Baccarat pansy, and you think that this was done, all these little pieces were done by hand, then they had to be put into this little round orb, and all of it had to be cooled at exactly the right temperature so there's no cracks in it. And to get a perfect paperweight is like, it's the chances and the odds are staggering. And my husband and I started collecting books probably 10 years ago or so, and we started with modern first editions.
I just wonder, is it like me with frosting? Why isn't one enough?
Because it's a lot like paperweights. Once you learn a little bit about something, then you think, oh my God, I have these books, now I have to get these books. Here's another one of the biggies is The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway. This is one of the very rarest books. Next to the Gatsby, this is probably the rarest of the books.
And why is that?
Because scarcity, people usually took the jackets off of all the books, and this is where all the value is in the jacket, more so than in the book.
Why is it the jacket that's so valuable?
I don't know, it's the artwork, it's just the way of the collecting, and it's just, it's
documenting
the way
the
it
time,
is.
the era.
And it's got all the copyright things on the pages, and the bells and whistles. It's got the prices on them. If they're price clipped, you don't want them.
It's amazing how its rarity and its condition ends up making a price of $60,000.
Oh no, or more, a lot more.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you think of sort of collecting as an addiction?
Well, some people probably could call it an addiction. Yeah, I just have a lust for beautiful things, that's all.
It's really nice to go into Candace's home.
You mentioned Sun Also Rises. What other favorite
Well,
books?
I gotta tell you, the highlight of my collection is J.K. Rowling when the Harry Potter series first came out. Her father and her got into an argument when she first started writing these books. And he needed money, and so he secretly, or so he thought secretly, sold all of his first editions that she had inscribed to him at auction at Sotheby's in New York. And my husband and I, we go to all the auctions, and I mean, these books were so rare you had to hold them with white gloves to look at them. I never forgot, my hands were shaking like a leaf. And it was like 5 books, I mean, full page inscriptions and, from Father's Day, love, from your firstborn child. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Oh, and she'd even circled number 1 and say, ooh, look, first edition, I got one. Like it would be hard for J.K. Rowling to get a first edition of her own book. But at that time, that's how thrilled she was over it. And then she had one that said Up the Sunday Mail because they'd written a bad review about one of her books. I mean, just
that killed her career, by the way.
As we know.
But unbelievable stuff. And so it was Christmas, and my husband, he bids at auction on the phone. We do that often. And at Christmas, he bought all the books for me for my Christmas present. And those are my total treasures.
So you have enough to share.
I mean, they are priceless to me. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Pretty cool.
I love antiques as well, and I have I collect mostly antique books. I collect books as well, and theater books and old plays, that sort of thing. But probably my treasure is this first edition of Gone with the Wind that was my grandmother's. That also has a letter inside from Margaret Mitchell to my grandma. That was a response to my grandma's question to her. Of course, the question that my grandmother wants to know, that probably every housewife in the late 30s wanted to know, which was, what happens to Scarlett O'Hara? What happens to her at the end? And I think she writes something like, that's up to you get to decide. That's up for you to decide, or something like that. But it's a really lovely letter back from Margaret Mitchell with it. Yeah.
Well, so again, tying into your love of history.
It is, right.
And so tell us again, just raise your hands if you've been to Timeline Theater. Woo! All right. Okay. So a bunch of people, but not everybody.
Right.
So we're all going, right? All of us. We won't all fit. Hold on. We'll have to go in 2 segments. So the left side of the room will go next week, and the right side of the room will go the week after that, because you can only take 99 people. So tell us again the mission of Timeline Theater, for those maybe who haven't been, and about Blood and Gifts.
Yes.
Which you are directing currently.
That's right. The mission of Timeline is exploring plays that are inspired by history that connect with today's social political issues. So what that really means is we do plays about the past that have some resonance in the present. And really, the main thing we try to find are plays that provoke conversation. I think there's nothing better than leaving the theater
or really a movie, any kind of cultural experience, and wanting to talk about it and having a conversation about it. So oftentimes we're a very tight knit company, 10 company members that pick all the plays, and all of us decide this almost exclusively based on this question of what are people going to talk about? And oftentimes we come away going, God, it's a great play, but I don't know what I'd talk about afterwards. I think I'd come away going, well, that was fun, that was entertaining, or that's interesting to know about. But what we always look for, plays that are going to provoke conversation and that are going to get people thinking and consequently talking with each other. So that's the goal. The play we're doing right now is called Blood and Gifts. It's a play about Afghanistan, which is one of those subjects that I think a lot of people hear Afghanistan and they go, not interested, because and I think as a country we have a little sense of that. But yet this play is a thriller. It's sort of a spy thriller, actually, with KGB agents and CIA agents and MI6 agents, and which is unusual for theater. You rarely see sort of spy type plays.
Yes, right.
And it's also a play about that war that really began, well, centuries ago, but the part that we're really focusing on are the 80s when the Russians were invading, and it's very much about this about the Cold War, about the U.S. and Russia fighting each other, and this sort of chess game that became Afghanistan. That Afghanistan became the chess board on which that Cold War was played out, and ultimately the most amazing part of it is that it wasn't a war between two sides. It ends up being a war between many sides, and a war that eventually comes back to very much affect us in ways at 9/11 in particular. So it's a play very much about how we got to 9/11, I'd say.
And one of the reasons I'm so thankful for art communities that do things like this is because I loved school and I loved history, but I don't retain everything. And now having been out of college for quite a while, I'm really thrilled that something like this can sort of remind me of the history that I'm familiar with because of newspaper articles now and our involvement, but the Russians leading up, and I'm really thankful that through art often, through paintings and through plays, I'm reminded of history, and it's sort of brought back to the forefront of my life.
Right. I mean,
Wait a minute. The Russians in Afghanistan turned out to be a bad idea?
Yeah.
I wish somebody had pointed that out.
Right. In fact, I think one of the most striking things about this play is this the question about trust, and can we as a country ever expect to be trusted if we can never give our trust as well, Right. And so that's a really fascinating thing, and maybe the most interesting thing about Afghanistan, about that war, is that none of it seems, looking back at it, there's nothing that you could say that would say that's what we should have done differently. Or you could say about 100 things, but none of them lead down a road that looks very, very happy.
Yes,
and that's a tough thing and a tough conclusion to come to. But that's one of the things I think that makes this play striking and makes that subject so striking is the incredibly complex, difficult challenges that are going on there still to this day. And as we start to withdraw from that country over the next year, it's going to become a very heated, big issue again, I think. So.
Right. It's something that really hasn't been put to rest in any
And I don't know that it will be anytime soon. That's the challenges of it. So
well,
those are some of the conversations.
I wanted to ask you, because so much of your mission is history and politics, and because we've already trashed on so many people here tonight, I wanted to ask you guys, and you guys in the audience, feel free to throw it out too. So what do you think of our mayor? He's been here for a while. We've had him now for a bit.
Yeah.
Go
well,
ahead.
They've come out with a very big arts plan for the city, which is so sort of daunting that it's almost impossible to really read it. But I don't want to say anything bad about the mayor, because I think actually he seems to care more about the arts than maybe any other mayor we've ever had.
Absolutely. Yeah.
However, also interestingly, maybe because he is an artist himself, there may be a little less of a drive to help the artist right now. That's, I think, the fascinating thing about Daley was that, or I should say, the second Mayor Daley, was that I never got a sense that he was maybe even a real fan of art. I rarely saw him out at the theater. He went to the Goodman, I think, and he went to some places to see and be seen. But, and yet, he did some really astonishing things for theaters and for dance companies, etc. Of course, you know, a lot of money that was spent, perhaps, that we are still paying for today.
Yeah.
And less of that kind of thing, you know, is...
No.
Yeah, if you can imagine. And less of that kind of thing is happening today. I guess I feel like Rahm Emanuel is in a position where his hands are tied and he hasn't found a way to really begin to push the arts yet. I think that's what I'd say about it. You know, I wish he could do more. I'm not sure he can with the budgets they've got right now.
Well, he's really gotten behind dance. So
That's
I
true.
interviewed him for the Huffington Post. And he's such a funny character
Yeah.
because you guys have interviewed him as well, right?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
I saw pictures of you and I knew. So I don't know how you found him. I mean, he's just, I guess, you know, he's short on time. And so he's really crisp and to the point. And in a way, he's like a little surly character. So I always think of him because he's a dancer. I think of him as like our tiny dancer. But he's just got a little surliness to him. Like I asked him at the end of an interview, because we were talking about the arts plan, and I asked him at the end of an interview just to kind of add some levity. So, you know, on any bad political days at City Hall, do you ever wish you'd remained a ballerina? Well, a ballet dancer. And he said, this interview's over.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Right.
he's into that.
You know
He's
what?
not-
I've interviewed him twice on the air,
Yeah.
and he has been absolutely great. But we provide kind of a safe harbor.
Yes, yes.
It's not we're not gonna say, what about closing all the schools? What about the parking meters?
Right, yeah.
That wasn't my idea.
Right.
He comes, he talks, he's a huge fan. He
Yeah.
grew up listening to XRT.
Ah, yay.
So the first time he comes is 2 days after he's elected. And he comes to Prudential Center. And, you know, we're owned by CBS Radio. There's 7 stations. And it's like kicking over a beehive. Everybody's like, oh, the mayor's here. We got to talk to the mayor. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He wants to come to XRT and say, you know, when I was growing up, my brother Ari and I would fight with our dad. Our dad wanted to listen to WFMT, and we wanted to listen to XRT.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's walking down the hall, and people are saying, no, this is Terry Hemmert. He's going, I know. It's a very unusual and unsettling experience to have the mayor of Chicago talking about the place you're working as a place he grew up listening
Yes,
to.
yes. So yeah, the many facets of the mayor. I know you've interviewed him as well.
I find him surly too. I mean, I have to be honest. You know, I like.
Gotta talk to him about rock and roll.
Well, you know, I did interview him for Watch 312, and as a matter of fact, it was at the Illinois Centers for Broadcasting, and it was all the students there. This is another kind of a CeeLo story. I hate to say this, but you know, I mean, here's all these students. They were thrilled to the fact that the mayor was going to be in their classroom, and so I was going to interview him for the class. And you know, since they're students there, I had asked him, you know, what plans his kids had after, you know, their school or whatever. I'm not here to talk about my kids. I thought, well, we're here with these kids. We need not to talk about kids. I said, okay, fine. So here's how I see him. I see him as surly. But I also, you know, Daley was so warm and fuzzy.
Yes,
you know?
he was.
I loved his speech patterns. It was cute.
Yes, he did.
You know,
Yeah.
and Daley was the beautification mayor. I think he
Yeah,
made
he
the
did,
city
yeah.
look spectacular.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess I look at Rahm as like the financial guy. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, they both were going to make the city great, but yeah, I found him surly.
Yeah, he's on cleanup duty for sure.
Yeah. His appreciation of arts, though, is amazing.
It
and
is.
actually, I'll say this. He's actually out at small theaters, and not just small
Yes,
theaters, but
yes, yes.
small dance
Yeah.
venues. And he's brought attention to some small venues and some small stuff in the city that's really admirable. So
Yes,
I must
yes.
say that positive thing about
Yes,
him.
I see him out at concerts all the time.
It's amazing.
And it's not like big, like everybody goes to see the Rolling Stones or something. He's at Ryan Adams concert.
Yes,
He's
yeah.
at Ray LaMontagne concerts.
Yeah.
Doomed singer-songwriter concerts.
It's amazing because he does have 2 small kids, so that he gets out, it's pretty amazing. Well, okay, so let me just take a quick little sponsor break, and then we're going to come back for a tweet and another performance by Nick Bowling. So let's see if we can give our sponsors a little time.
Disaster Planning and Response Art Rescue is a first responder for the world of art, providing planning, packing, evacuation, conservation, and storage for all your treasured possessions.
thrilling, and it is from Lynn Jordan 1, who has just won 2 tickets to see Blood and
Gifts. That's right.
Yes,
Right.
which is running through June. So I've got a gift certificate for you, Miss Lynn Jordan 1,
Yes.
and it's running through June.
It's running through the end of July,
And
actually.
it's the end of July.
Yes,
Great.
it's a
Is
small
that
theater,
the
so-
same Lynn Jordan who's one of the preeminent singers in Chicago?
That is Diva Lynn Jordan, as we know it, who has rocked this house at City Winery so many times. Hi, Lynn!
Hi, Lynn.
We sure do
Love your
Lynn.
first name.
Okay, so her question for you is, are the arts more or less work than corporate or traditional work?
Oh, that's a great question.
It sure is.
Well, here's the difference: is that it doesn't feel like work. That's the whole thing. So we were all talking because Lynn wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning or some crazy hour, and Candace and I are more night owl type people. And in the theater world, we start our days around 10 o'clock in the morning, but oftentimes we go until 1 o'clock in the morning. I was at the past 2 weeks. We've been at the theater every night until probably 12 to 1 every night for at least 15 days, something like that in a row.
Yeah.
So, corporate work was sort of more typical work, but I work harder. I do more manual labor. I find myself in the theater I'm cutting things and sawing things. I really shouldn't be cutting and sawing probably, but I do anyway. And I do it all with a sort of a zest for what I'm doing because it's all going towards something that I so strongly believe in. Not to say that I didn't believe in corporate concierge services where I worked and I loved my job there, but it was in the theater we all talk, in theater and dance and everything. In the arts we oftentimes talk about our day jobs, and it was my day job that was threatening to become my day and night job, and that's when I was lucky enough to be able to say, hey, I'm leaving to go pursue my passion in the theater. So I guess I don't even think I work right now. I feel like a man who's retired that gets to go to the theater all the time.
Well, that's the gig. That's the gig. So let's take a look and see what Lynn actually, Lynn, what's wrong with you? What Nick actually does and what he creates. So give us a little explanation of who we're going to see.
Okay, so tonight, ladies, I hope you're up here somewhere.
They're coming. They're right in the back. They're all ready.
I've got 2 ladies here, Liz Dorn on piano and the amazing Rebecca Finnegan on vocals. And these 2 ladies, let's come on, ladies. She's won many Jeff Awards, by the way, as well. Probably 7, I'll say. Rebecca's going to sing a song from a musical we all worked together on last year. And the reason that they're singing this is because the 3 of us are working again on a musical next year at Timeline. The musical next year is called Juno, and it's a musical. It's not that movie that came out a few years back. This is a musical version of Juno and the Paycock, and it will be which is an old Irish classic, funny, sad, heartbreaking, in typical Irish form. A play musical, and it's the Chicago premiere of Juno. That'll be happening next year, literally a year from today. I would say it's going to be opening. And this is from a show we did together called A Catered Affair. Some of you may know the film with Betty Davis and Ernest Borgnine and Debbie Reynolds from the 1950s. It's about a Bronx family who've lost their son to the Korean War, and whose daughter wants to get married and comes in and says, I'm just going to go elope because we don't have enough money to have a proper wedding. And the mother, who Rebecca's playing today, says, no, I want to give her a proper catered affair. And Harvey Fierstein wrote this play for Broadway with John Bocchino's music. Take it away, ladies.
We've never been kind to her, Tom. We always treated her cold. I will never forgive myself for that. We always favored the boy. We did, Tom, God rest his soul. We always treated him good. Gave him whatever we could. But not the girl. She never asked for much, because we taught her not to expect too much. Our only daughter. We managed to send him to school, though he never wanted to go. joined up, dropped out, and off he flew. She had her college picked out, but that was when business got slow. We couldn't give her a dime. She had to start working full time to help us through. She never asked for more because life taught her that there was nothing more for our only daughter. We gave him all that we had, and what is there left? A flag and some medals to throw in a drawer. You say this check is our future, but that's not the truth. I say your kids are your future, and though there's no way we could buy back a youth, we could still give her one perfect day to remember us for. Please, let's give her this one thing, Tom. One thing that's special for her. One thing she'll smile about all of her days. A beautiful catered affair with friends and family around. A big satin photo book she can look at when times get bad. Think of her mom and her dad and the only bit of joy we ever brought her. Our one remaining child, our little girl, our only daughter.
Wow! Did I say that we're all going to the Timeline Theater? Yes. Okay. So this is just a little bit too much fun to have without our chef. So let's take a look at the video and see what he's made for our entree.
Welcome back. All right, for your entree this evening, we're going to be doing a little bit of Twin Oaks Farms pork shoulder cotticino. Cotticino is a farce wrapped inside a whole meat. This one's going to be served with a little bit of Good Mother Stallard beans from Rancho Gordo and some collard greens and a little bit of my grandmother's secret recipe chow chow. We have pork shoulder. And this is just one section that I've cut off of it. With the rest of the pork shoulder, I made a sausage, and within the sausage, it's a mixture of about 80-20, so 80% lean, 20% fat. I grind it, and then I mix into a few other ingredients. I've got garlic confit, currants, some white wine, thyme, savory, rosemary, espelette, salt and pepper, you name it. Nice sausage. Pulling off nice shapes from the pork shoulder, I try and look for spots that have nice fat content to them, that are gonna cook nice and moistly. And what we'll do is, we'll take a knife and just kind of run it down the center, not cutting all the way through. So after I've got the meat sliced open, kind of butterflied, we're gonna take a meat hammer and we're gonna softly pound it out until it's a nice sheet of meat. All right, so now what we want to do with this, we take the sheet of meat and we study and see which side has the most fat. I want to have the fat on the outside so it crisps up, again, GBD, golden brown delicious. I kind of like the way this one looks because this is going to crisp up nicely. Season both sides, salt and pepper. It's important to season everything at all times. And then we can start stuffing it. We're going to take the sausage that we made earlier with the rest of the pork shoulder and form it into a tube. You can see all the currants, fat, garlic confit. We'll roll it onto itself. Trim off any excess. And now it's time to tie it. So once, twice, that holds it down tight so it doesn't come out on you. You don't need somebody's finger to hold it down. And once more. Tubular meats. Here at the restaurant, we cook ours sous vide or in a water bath. So this one's already been pre-cooked a little bit. So all I have to do is get the golden brown delicious crisp on the outside. I try and sear the seam side first. See how we're starting to get nice and crispy? That's gonna go in for about 5-8 minutes. Start working the garniture now. So these are this is a little bit of collard greens, braised in onion, celery, a little bit of hot sauce and some bacon, cooked down until nice and fall apart tender. These are the good Mother Stallard beans. I found these beans when I was out in Napa Valley helping open up an Andaz. Probably some of the best beans that I've ever had in my life. See, we're all set. Drain off the fat. And now for my favorite part in cooking, the basting. Take some butter. A little bit of garlic clove. And the best part, listen for it, a thyme. When you hear that thyme crackle, that's the sound of victory. Take it out. Let it rest for a second. So now after the pork is rested for about 3 to 4 minutes, allowing all the juices to kind of stay intact, we're going to cut the strings. Just pull those off. So we're going to trim the end here. You always have to save a little bit for yourself. First, we're going to lay down some of these collard greens. Some of our beans now. Place the pork on. A little bit of pork jus. So we're going to finish this dish off with my grandmother's recipe for chow chow. It was one of her recipes that she submitted into a cookbook back in 1931, and it was lost for decades, and now it's revived here at Nomi Kitchen. So there you have it, Twin Oaks Farms pork cotechino with some good Mother Stallard beans, collard greens, and Rosemary Krieger's chow chow. Well, thank you again for joining us on this evening's dinner party. Again, my name is Sean Farr. I'm up here at Nomi Kitchen at Park Hyatt, Chicago. I hope you come and see me real soon.
I got a quick question.
Okay.
Is that clarified butter that you put in there?
No, that's straight up whole butter, buddy.
That's straight up whole butter.
Straight good old fat. Well, that's great. Okay, so I have a question for you. So many things have been coming on the Chicago food scene. I mean, it's just like in full gear, fast gear, and I'm wondering, where do you see it going? Like, when are we going to reach our peak, or do you think we're there, or we have way more to go?
No, I think we have way more to go. I mean, I think Chicago's always been compared to New York as, the second place as far as a food town. And if you go out right now, we have everything that New York has to offer. And I see us surpassing that, in all honesty. I mean, it's good Midwestern values and.
Because when I go to Paris or Milan or Montreal, or because I travel quite a bit, I'm amazed that no one has it going on like Chicago. For food, I really feel that this is true.
Yes.
Yes. Well, okay, so I have another question that I'll start with Sean, but I'll open it up to the whole group. So my favorite quote, I interviewed Nick a while ago for the Beethoven Festival, and this is by far my very favorite quote. And he said, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, maybe you can correct me, but the gist is, in New York and LA, they have to focus on the hit, and that can detract from the work. But here in Chicago, we focus on the work, and that can make for better work. And so I wondered what you guys all thought of this. Because now that, to the mayor's credit, and while he has a little bit of a surly personality, he's done wonderful things for the arts, I think, personally. I think he's done wonderful things for the arts. He does get behind. He's really trying to take it to that international world-class city, particularly for the arts, and I wonder, is that going to change how we do our work? And I wondered if you guys had any perspective on that. Starting with Sean.
I don't think it's going to change how we do our work. I mean, everybody that I've encountered in my industry has always been, blue collar driven, just work, and the end has always been a great result, and it's always been a teamwork kind of thing, and like when I first moved to Chicago, it was 13 cooks working at True for $90 a day, and it was 16 hours a day, and we were all in it just for the cause. We used to say that we did the work for free and we got paid to be afraid. So I think that that's kind of what Chicago represents. It's just we're always going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Well, it's interesting because True has a very high ticket, dinner plate. So I'm surprised that it was interesting. Very interesting. What do you guys think about that? That in Chicago, the work can make for better work, and is that ethic changing as we get to be this cosmopolitan international city?
You know what? I think Chicago is such a DIY. In the music scene, it's just like theater scene. It's not like people saying to Nick, "Why are you starting a theater?" We already have a theater.
No one would ever say that here.
Nobody would ever say that. Why are you forming a band that sounds like that? We already have we have lots of bands like that. Everybody wants to do it for themselves, and I love to go out and eat. And as he was saying, you go up and down Randolph Avenue.
Gosh, yeah.
You go on Fulton. You know what? Find me another city in the world where you can walk 20 yards from Moto down the street to Publican, down the street to
Serena Clandestina. Yes, it just goes on and on. And Little Girl and the Goat, Nell Coat. I mean, you could just trip over yourself, and every restaurant is
walk a little bit further and go to Nomi.
Right.
That's great. Keep going.
Yes, of course. No, we don't walk a little bit further. We start at Nomi, and then everybody else. Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's quite incredible. And not only that, so I don't know if any of you heard about the Reader recently had something called Key Ingredient Fest. And so there's this fun of creation where the Key Ingredient Fest is where the Reader asked the chefs to kind of taunt each other with a challenge to key with one key ingredient that's really weird. So chefs would have to create from like pig uterus. Not that I want pig uterus because I do not. But they would have to, when another thing was kombucha.
lots of butter.
Lots of butter basically makes it happen. But, so these weird kind of contests for the fun of it to challenge people, we're really into the creative nature of the work for the joy of the work, I think. Or is this changing? Candace, what do you think?
No, I think it's, Midwestern values. I think there's a reason why we're here in the Midwest. All the people like the DIY, I think love that analogy. I think people here just they're born to work, and the success is the end result, but the work is the path that's the most fulfilling, I think,
and maybe in New York it's so big and so intimidating that you feel like unless you're reaching for the prize, you're not really going after it. Where in Chicago, it's like, hey, everybody's in this together. We're all going to give it a shot. One of the things I love about the culinary community is the people you worked with at True all go on to do great things.
Great things.
There's some kitchens in Chicago where everybody has come out of those kitchens and emerged as a culinary star in Chicago.
That's right, and many of the people you were with at True are now with you at Nomi Kitchen.
Yeah, we have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, we call it.
Yeah, and it's not only that we're creative and that we do the work, but we're so supportive. Again, like people getting behind Timeline Theater, we're all just so supportive of Candace just starting a blog and having never had coming from Playmate of the Year and then a long acting career
I'm
and
from a small town in Southern Illinois, 3,000 people. It's a Midwestern through and through, and I had a dream and I followed it and came to Chicago, and that's what people do here. I mean, they have a goal or a dream, they pursue it. No matter what it is, if it's in the culinary world or if it's the other world. I mean,
and people
they're
get behind
doers.
You.
Yeah,
Yes.
and people are supporting.
Yes.
Maybe that is the bottom line about the Midwest. They support one another.
Yeah.
In New York and LA, it's dog eat dog out there.
Yeah.
I mean, and most of them, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there's pockets full of lovely people.
Of course.
But you really
let's trash it.
Wait.
We trashed it. Hold on. Nora
Yeah.
Jones,
Can you erase
CeeLo,
that
Mayor,
picture? No,
LA, New York.
You erase that
I
part
grew
from
up
the
in New
table.
York. It's not full of lovely people.
No, but you know what I mean. People
I do.
support each other
Yes.
here, and that's one of the reasons I love this city so much. I really do. They really are supporting people.
So my favorite quote came from you. So what do you think?
What's so fascinating is there's a little bit, I think, I can't help but think that being a Chicago, I feel like I'm a Chicago and I've been here 17 years, and I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, so even smaller than you in Iowa. I'm a true Midwesterner too. There is an element of second city kind of mentality. I think sometimes that I have to be conscious of myself, and I think
as Chicagoans we have to be somewhat aware of. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to New York in 2 weeks to go see a bunch of theater because I love seeing hits and I love taking a chance on a flop, and I love that about New York. I don't look at it as an either or. I guess I look at it as we do things here in, as you've said, a very Midwestern way, and it's funny. I had a friend in from out of town recently who said, "God, these actors, you're all so Midwestern," and he's from New York, and I think what he was saying was they're very process focused. They weren't product focused, meaning that they did. And what he was sort of saying was, no, you just got to say it like this and get it out there and just make it work. It's a joke. Come on, just make it work. And these Chicago actors actually don't think like that. They want to find their way they want to find their way to make sense of it for themselves. So
feel
it's sort of from inside out rather than outside in.
Yeah.
And again, I don't disparage the other, because I've seen great work come out of that as well. So anyway, that's what I have to say about it. I think this is a city where this is a city full of process-focused artists. One of them is that woman who sang for you a little bit earlier, and you know, Rebecca, that's a star voice right there, you know. And she's a working actress in Chicago. She doesn't ever stop working in Chicago theater, but you know, I would guess there's never been a year that she makes more money than, say, about a third of the lowest paid person in this room. Sorry to throw that out there at you, Finnegan, but it is a tough business and a hard city to make money in that business, and yet. And I think that has something to say about it. It's not a product city. You're not here, and if Rebecca wants to go make some money, she shouldn't be here in Chicago. She knows that.
Right.
Right over
Good
here.
girl. Good
Well,
girl.
it's like Sean was saying, you know, everybody thinks, you know, haute cuisine is this just gold mine of money for all the people working in the kitchen. A lot of kitchens, people go to work there just so they can put it on their resume. They make nothing.
Yeah.
And you're working at one of the most expensive restaurants, you know, in the city, and you know, you're making a living, but you're not the highest paid chef out there working in the back kitchen at True.
So I have a tweet now for Sean, and of course this smart girl has just won herself a gift certificate to Nomi Kitchen.
Oh,
Very nice
man.
job. She got it in there first. Good for her. At Steph Eats Chicago, she wants to know, when was the moment you realized food cooking could be its own art form?
So, I guess it starts when I started cooking. I started in a pizzeria in New London, Wisconsin, a town of 7,000. We had a Walmart. It was huge. And I never noticed that we were busy. I never noticed that I was in the weeds in service, or that, you know, it was crazy. But it just seemed like fun all the time. So it started out as something that just seemed like something I should do all the time. And then when I decided to drop out of music and get into food, I got my first job at a country club in Stevens Point, and the chef wanted me to do this salad, and I thought the salad looked kind of stupid, and I kept running out to this parking lot that had kale growing in it, and I kept running and clipping pieces of kale like every order. I never had the foresight to grab a couple orders of it, and I don't know what the chef thought was wrong with me. So I'd run out to this thing and I'd be like, "Oh, this looks great," and then I'd run back out to the parking lot and I'd be, "Oh, this looks great." So I think maybe that was the moment where I thought, like, it's kind of an art form. I would say it's a bit more of a craft than an art form at this point with me, but like I think, yeah, running to that parking lot in Stevens Point was art.
Was your moment? Well, what's funny for me is because I did an article for the Huffington Post, and I had asked all of the artists where their favorite place to dine is, and so they all told me, which was great. And then I thought, well, gosh, you know, it'd be really fun to ask the high-end chefs what their favorite dive is, and they came back to me with like more responses than I could almost print. It was amazing, and I'm wondering if you all have your favorite dive. So as much as we all like haute cuisine here, and we've been digging on what Sean has to do, and Sean himself says he loves a dive, I wonder if you each have your favorite dive.
There's a little pool hall in Dupo, Illinois,
that
has probably the best fried pork chop sandwiches on the planet, and that's probably my favorite. And it's also a memory because my family, when they were alive, we would all go there together. And it's still there, so that's probably my favorite dive.
And where is Dupo, Illinois?
It's actually the American Legion Hall in Dupo, Illinois.
Oh my word!
Yeah, and I love it. Absolutely love it. It's like going to Cheers,
Yes.
where everybody knows your name.
And
you
you come back home, basically.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
Nick?
10 pounds heavier.
I'll go for a real dive. This is my go-to dive at the end of one of those nights at 1 a.m. when nothing else in the city is open. There's a little grill up on Western Avenue called Jerry's Grill. I mean, have you ever seen that place? Here's what I'll say about it. It is not pretty in there, especially at 1 in, but it's kind of fascinating to me. I end up sitting in there usually for an hour or so, and the sign outside says ham on the bone. Like, that's what they're advertising outside. And the ham on the bone's really good, but more importantly, it's just a great place to go people watch at 1 in when nothing else is open, and they're open 24 hours. So Jerry's Grill, Geris, I think. Very odd.
And this is on Western and what now?
Western and Montrose, right?
I'll
see you there.
Montrose, okay. And Chef, what is your favorite? Because you keep saying you like to do pizzas and burgers.
Well, Nomi at Chicago Gourmet won the best burger contest against a whole tent filled with the best chefs in Chicago.
That's right.
So they know what they're doing on both sides of the street.
Well, as we know, because we just had it, and it was fantastic. Yes.
I'm a fish fry freak, and I think the one that I hold nearest to my heart is this place called the Green Lantern in Madison, Wisconsin. That we used to, if I had any crewmates that would get off on a Friday, which was quite rare, but I remember there was 8 of us one time, and you go there and you wait for your table for an hour and a half, and you drink old fashions until you can't drink anymore, and then you sit down and it's like $13.95. You eat all you can eat fish fry, and you're just pounding tartar sauce, and so to me that's like you're sitting around with 300 other people, and they cycle through 12 deep fryers that night, 1 ton of cod every Friday night, and
Oh my gosh.
that to me is epic. That's where it's all at, right there.
Wow.
You, sir?
Well, it makes me a little wistful because the place just closed, and now it's part of a larger empire. But the original Little Yellow, we called it the Little Yellow Jail on Ashland Division, La Pasadita. Now they have La Pasadita across the street. But after a Bulls game, or when it was after midnight and your options had shrunk, you'd go there, and there was nothing fancy about it. The steak burrito. I recently had I don't want to talk about that.
Go on.
I was going to say, I recently broke down and had a burrito at a place that, kind of fast food burritos. And I said, how bad can it be? And it was horrible.
Oh.
At La Pasadita, they've got the grill there. They put a nice char on the steak. They don't mess it up with a lot of stuff. Minced white onion, fresh cilantro chopped up, and a hot sauce. And they just wrap it up in a burrito.
I'm getting teary-eyed, man.
I know.
Delicious.
I know. I could, even after this fabulous dinner, in a few hours, I could head out there. But, now they have La Pasadita Expresses in a bunch of places. I can't vouch for those places being as good as the original La Pasadita.
Why did the original close? Because it was so popular.
Because they have too many of them. They have a big one. They have a big regular restaurant across the street now. So maybe they felt like they didn't need all that. But, man, that was a great
really
steak burrito.
Really good. Okay, well, hopefully now everyone's getting their votes.
Wait a minute, what about yours, Elizabeth?
Oh, so I like to go to Sultan Market, and it's not a dive in terms of like late night, because I think it closes at 4 p.m. or something, but the best falafel, and it's so good, and they take
where's
cash.
that at?
Oh, come on now. So Sultan Market is on North Avenue, 1 block west of Damon, and it used to be a grocery store, and they would sell these falafels in the back, and then the falafels got so popular that they changed the whole thing over to be just falafels and baba ganoush and hummus, and but it's really good, and their sauces are really spicy, and I love it. But it closes at around 4 p.m. And so that's where I go for falafel, because I usually don't eat meat unless I know it's humanely treated. So I go for the falafel, and it's super, super good. But you have to.
I love a good falafel.
Okay.
There's a good gourmet pita in a shopping center in Niles at Village Crossing, and those falafels they make lentil soup, great lentil soup, and tremendous falafels. And I've toured the city on falafels.
You've toured this. I believe you.
I'm a falafel guy.
I believe you. Okay, so I have one more tweet for the whole crowd before we close this out. But I do want to say, you've all gotten your Vosges. Aren't so good, isn't it? So we have our little Vosges packets, and I'm going to delve into this in a second. So for Adam Chicky, he wants to ask everyone at the table, and of course Adam has won tickets to Hubbard Street to see Hubbard Street. And weren't they fantastic when they opened for us? They were so good. So Hubbard Street is going to next be at the MCA June 6th to the 16th on something called called Dance Evolve, and they'll be performing there, and it's so very exciting. And you have won tickets to that, dear Adam Chicky. Good for you. So around the table, really fast, what is the accomplishment you're most proud of?
It's my baby is Timeline Theater. I helped found it, and it's other people have children. I'm gay, so I'm not going to have children most likely at this late stage in life. And so it's my baby, and it's in its 17th year.
Yes, and we're grateful and thankful for Timeline Theater.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Miss Candace, what are you most proud of?
I think that being able to write what I'm passionate about and get paid for it is probably my greatest
Good for you.
Good girl. Nice job. Sean?
My 4-week-old daughter, Abigail.
Yes.
A real baby.
God. My God. What can you say?
I can't follow that.
Sir, well,
The charity work, I'm not going to.
You can say my daughter Abigail if you want.
Well, that sounds creepy. You know what? When I was 16, I wanted to be a writer. And I went to college. I said, I'm going to be a writer. And I majored in English literature. And I said, well, I also just want to drink beer and play rock and roll, too. And that's what I did. And now it's come full circle. In the last 10 years, I do way too much writing. But it's really rewarding. And it's got a great payoff. And it's an emotional release for me. And once it gets in the hands of Pete Crozier, who crafts these ill-chosen words into something meaningful to me, it's great to hear it on the radio, even though, I've had a part in producing it and putting it together. So that's what I'm most
I think that's wonderful that you can say that after doing it so many years. And to still feel that way about what you do. Absolutely. I'll say for me, really briefly, the thing I'm most proud of is that I live a life that is rich of experience. And it's not title, and it's not job, and it's not money. It's just a life that makes me really rich because I have such a diverse list of experiences, and so that's what I go for in life. Hopefully you guys feel the same about your lives. That's how we're gonna end. This is the last show of our spring season. We'll be back in the fall right here at City Winery. I want to point your attention to the screens because so many people work on this show to make it happen, so I am so grateful to all of them for helping me out tonight, and so many of them have done me just amazing favors, so I have an incredible team. I also have an incredible lineup of guests here with me tonight. So the Nick Bowling of the Timeline Theater, it's wonderful. We're all going to Timeline, everyone together, group effort. Candace Jordan of Watch 312, of Chicago Tribune, of CandidCandace.com. We love her. And of course, Sean Barber working so hard when he has a baby at home. What's he doing with us? What's he doing with us when he has a baby at home? Thank you, Sean, so much. To the incredible Lynn Bramer, who is just a Chicago beloved icon and friend. We're so happy to have him here. My name is Elizabeth Alfano. We're going to be back here in the fall. We can't wait. So check out FearNoArt.tv to find out the dates for the fall. And of course, check us out on citywinery.com. We're going to be back here in the fall. We're also going to hang out and have drinks with all of you. So stick with us, everybody. Thanks for coming.